And then now we have these back-to-back like bad tastes in our mouths from the last time we've seen this Chiefs time. They've given up 67 combined points. They've given up 739 total yards, Jared. They're arguing with each other on the field. What do we need to happen here? How do we fix this Spags defense? Like, what's happening here? They got the Eagles honestly, this week.
And Eagles look good. The Eagles look real good. You want to know that's the problem with Minnesota. You got to go through the Philly, right? This NFC, the whole NFL, that train still goes through Philly, and Philly does not look like they're slowing down. I'll be really honest. That's a good looking squad. But I think the thing with the Chiefs is, again, I mean, there's a recipe for success. I'm a big MMA and fight fan, right? And I'll never forget when Rich Franklin knocked out Chuck Liddell, right? And then it seemed like nobody was afraid of Chuck Liddell in the UFC anymore, even though Chuck was is probably the greatest fighters of all time in the UFC, right? But what happens is when people see you splinter, right, or you get splintered, when people see like, oh crap, like the beating the Eagles put on the Chiefs wasn't like, man, that was a tough. They beat them in the biggest game possible, right? And so they lay a foundation of how people are going to attack them. And so unless the Chiefs are willing to go and, do a deep self-scout and say, okay, we got some aging players here. We need to, retool here. We need to, scheme wise, do some things here. I think you're going to see this because people aren't afraid of them anymore. And that's a big thing, now granted, they've still been to 10 or something straight AFC championship games.
Are you worried about them? Are you out on them?
I am. You know what? I was actually one. I was like, I watched that game too, for the most part, bits and pieces of it, but Travis Kelce really didn't get involved until like the fourth quarter. What happened to throwing to your tight end? I mean, you have one of the greatest tight ends to ever play the game. Why are we not giving him the ball? Why are we trying to spread it to these young wide receivers? What happened to the run game? You got a 1-2 run punch. I mean, I think that's the other thing too is
Patrick led the team in rushing. It was insane. Yeah,
you have such an insanely good quarterback, but don't forget, what made him that good. You still got to, I think that's one thing why Tom Brady, is arguably considered the greatest to ever play at that position, is because, dude, he never really left outside the system. You know what I mean? I mean, that dude, they ran the ball. He wasn't afraid of I can remember multiple games and like the Super Bowl where, it's 3-0, 6-0, 10-0, and then all of a sudden they might open something up. But it was like, hey, we're going to keep running the ball. We are going to keep running the ball. We're going to throw to Gronk. We're going to throw to my pieces. So, I think if the Chiefs get back to being, controlling the line of scrimmage, controlling the down and distance, really get, the tight ends involved back in the game, I think it'll open up a lot more. I just over the last couple of years, I feel like they've really spread the ball. And that's great for everybody. But I mean, come on, if I got one of the best tight ends to ever play, I'm feeding him the ball. I'm going to run the ball to get, just to take a little stress off Mahomes. Then I'm going to let Mahomes do what Mahomes does, so.
We actually we have Delaney Walker on the show. I'm sure he'll be talking about that, but it is the Super Bowl rematch. It's a big game, and Fox always does things right and big when they should. And that's exciting that you guys will all be there. I love that. So let's dig into that game. You're at Arrowhead with Fox. You said power and light. Love it there. That's not a place that I don't know that I would trust you to run around. That's a whole scene down there in power and light. But if we look at the Eagles side of things, no rust. Okay. They did their thing against the Cowboys. No jitters, no week one, anything. Their top two wide receivers just had 4 catches for 24 yards combined. Lots being made of that. Any thoughts on that? Do you think that AJ and Devontae need to be involved a lot more and will be against these Chiefs? I mean, look at what Justin did to this Chiefs secondary.
Well, I mean, Coach Sirianni is a wonderful coach, and he comes up with these game plans on a weekly basis. And that's why he's a great coach, because he comes up with game plans that they need to succeed against that given team that they're playing that week. So sometimes the wide receivers for the Philadelphia Eagles won't be incorporated into the game plan as much because it might be more of a running game. And you got Jalen Hurts rushing the ball. You got Saquon Barkley as well. And those two guys are so legitimate that sometimes you don't have to pass the ball. But I can tell you this, Devontae Smith and a.j. Brown, your number is going to be called. And when it is called, be ready to make those plays. And that will make the Philadelphia Eagles that much more dominant as well, is when these wide receivers do get incorporated into the offense and get used the right way, how they should be used. But you can't complain when you win because of the running game. So they will be used. We will see how, especially coming up in this game against Kansas City.
For the Chiefs, no Xavier Worthy. They lost him on the 3rd snap of that game, of course, that you watched against the Chargers. Rashee Rice, of course, out for the foreseeable future, next handful of weeks. Jalen Royals is still possibly out. We don't know the update there. How you know, I guess I'll ask you this. Do you think that I was talking to Jared Allen yesterday? Did they use Travis Kelce the way you thought they would when those injuries happen? And of course, without Rasheed going into that, how do they generate enough offense to beat these Eagles?
It's going to be tough. I don't really think that they are going to be in a situation where they can overcome the adversity that they're going through, especially with the Eagles, how they're playing. I mean, they're coming in hot where they left off last year in the Super Bowl. I believe the Eagles are going to have the big advantage, and they're going to come out swinging once again versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And to overcome that wide receiver situation is going to be really tough. I mean, the running backs are going to have to step it up. They're going to have to generate that run game and get that going. And Hollywood Brown, that's going to be the name that the Kansas City Chiefs will be dependent on going into week 2 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles secondary, I believe, struggled a little bit versus the Cowboys in week 1. So they can find areas and zones to pick them apart. But Hollywood Brown needs to step it up big time. Travis Kelce is going to be used in situational football. I don't think that, you can depend on him first, second, third down on every single play. But in situational football, he can come through for them. But Hollywood Brown, once again, is the guy that needs to step up like never before. This is your opportunity. Take advantage of it, Mr. Hollywood.
I think you're right, Kelce. 2 catches, 47 yards, and a touchdown of that beautiful touchdown, but it didn't win them the game. Patrick, I thought looked great, especially in the second half. He can't do it all on his own. What surprised you about the Chiefs when you were watching that one?
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes is just an incredible quarterback. You can't take away anything from him. I'm literally like, he has no weapons, and he's continuing this offense to, keep the chains going. It's either with him running or just making a miracle play happen down the field. And it's just mind-blowing every time. I have so much respect for him and his game with what he does. But with the Kansas City Chiefs, what I was surprised about is when things aren't going their way, as you can see, when they start struggling a little bit, they start yelling at each other. Their blame game starts going on.
Yeah,
You can
what
see
is
it on the
that?
sidelines. And that's not a good situation. I mean, you want to come together when you're down, when things aren't going your way, and you want to come together to figure out why, everything's not going the way it needs to go. So to see them starting to point fingers is not a good sign. They gotta, get incorporated on and get on the same page and not be blaming others.
What do you think is going on there? Because why does it get there? And you got like the Chris Jones and Tranquil thing that yeah, I mean that never happened in New England.
Well, here we go, Kay. Remember Mike Tyson versus Buster Douglas? And Buster Douglas finally beat the crap out of Mike Tyson and made Mike Tyson not invincible anymore. Well, this is kind of the same situation. The Philadelphia Eagles opened the floodgates last year in the Super Bowl versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, hey, we're not afraid of this super team, Kansas City Chiefs, that are very, very well known. I feel like a lot of teams last year had that fear. Oh, I can't swing on the Chiefs. We can't give them our best shot because they're so well known and everyone is talking about them. So the Philadelphia Eagles punched them in the face. The Chiefs didn't know how to react to that because no one else was doing that. Well, going into this year now, the Los Angeles Chargers punched them in the face. The Chiefs were like, whoa, they're coming at us. How do we react? Well, they didn't know how to react because no one was doing that before. So the Philadelphia Eagles opened that floodgate of, hey, if you punch these guys in the face, you take it to them, you come out swinging, they're going to fold, and they're not going to be the team that you've been seeing all last year.
When your Patriots team lost to Chris Long's dog mask wearing Eagles, did you feel that the next year? Or is it the way the loss happened against the stunning, punch in the mouth, the domination? I'm trying to think
Well, that's the difference. When the
were
Philadelphia
people not
Eagles
afraid of you?
beat the Chiefs last year, though, they absolutely beat the brakes out of them. There was no competition. It wasn't even close. When we lost to the Philadelphia Eagles, that went down to the wire. We had over 500 yards offense. Everyone performed well on the wide receiver side of on the offensive side of the ball, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends. And it was down to the very last play with the Hail Mary. We were competing. It wasn't like they absolutely just knocked us out cold in the 5th round when there was 10 rounds. It went down to the wire. The Chiefs game last year in the Super Bowl was over in the second quarter, and that's the main difference, is that they didn't open the floodgates versus us. We were still coming out the next year swinging, and that's why we won the Super Bowl. We knew that we just, with a couple mistakes and a couple corrections, we can get back to where we needed to get back to, and that's what we did.
I think I might have I don't know. I really am like, I was like, the Chiefs are going to come out the gate and just that the empowerment and motivation they got from their ass kicking would absolutely trump any sort of we're not afraid of them anymore sentiment out there. But I think I might have overestimated their being gassed up by the loss versus other teams feeling a more confidence and a little bit like they're not invincible. Like I guess I think I might have underestimated that, at least so far. But I'm
I
still
think
afraid of
a
them.
lot of people
Jared Allen
have.
said teams aren't afraid of them. And then now
Mm.
you're sort of saying the same thing. And I'm like, well, what's the value of that? How much does that actually matter when you have a Patrick Mahomes who's throwing the ball vertically and we're just all normalized by his greatness and what he's like? How much does it actually matter when you do have Andy Reid and like, but I think it must matter a lot more than I understood.
It does matter because if you fear an opponent, you're not going to play at the level that you want to play at because you're thinking about who you're going against. It happened to me plenty of times in my situation. Say we're going versus Seattle Seahawks. Well, I know Earl Thomas was at the safety position, so I kind of feared him, going up the seam a little bit because he has laid me out a couple times. And when you fear that opponent, you're not really going to go full speed because you're thinking about it. And then that's the same
Huh.
situation I feel like last year versus the Chiefs. Everyone was feared them. Everyone was thinking about who they were going against. They weren't playing their game. So I do think that's such a thing, Kay.
But Gronk, don't you think like if I was trying to put myself in your and any opponent's shoes last year and they were these close games, there's this saying, right? Like everybody gets their best punch. Like the Patriots in their dynasty, everybody got. So to me, it's like if I'm going up against the most feared best team in the league that's gone to a million Super Bowls in a row and AFC this, AFC that, I'm more dialed in. I'm more dialed in against an opponent that I fear that's the best. Like that's why I think the Raiders gave them hell. The Panthers gave them hell last year in these games. So I guess like I think I would think fear would be I'd focus more in those games and not overlook them. But I guess these past two showings have been crazy.
Yes,
And
they have
then there's
been.
also
And
like, does it look like to you when you like, do the Chiefs believe in themselves less? Is that where maybe some of this like this disfunct is happening on the sidelines and stuff? Like, I don't know, maybe they believe in themselves less.
no, I mean, just the way you see them in the media and talking to the media and all that, I believe that they believe in themselves big time, but they
Mm.
are hurting. Remember, they are hurting big time on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense stepped it up. I mean, they played well versus the Chargers. I mean, Justin Herbert finally took his game to the next level. We've been all waiting for that for 10 years with the San Diego / LA Chargers for them to finally get over the hump. And it looks like they finally did it in week 1 of this year, opening week, which was a fantastic display by Herbert just overall in the air game and on the ground. But the Chiefs just overall are struggling in that, in the wide receiver position, and that takes away so much from their game. So when they get their guys back, there's going to be no more excuse, and I believe they'll amp it up more, and they can have more play designs as well and bigger chunk plays to get the ball moving.
Eagles favored by 1.5 points on the road. Last time the Chiefs were home underdogs was 3 years ago against the Bills, and they did in fact lose that game. I'm not going to make you pick. I know you'll pick on Fox. We'll hit a proper shot here for tomorrow night in just a little bit.